for men who refuse to stay complacent. Welcome to the Upgraded Man Podcast with your host, Chris Anderson.
Welcome back to another recording of the Upgraded Man Podcast. I'm Chris Anderson, your host. Today, we're going to be talking about relationships with your wife, your spouse, your kids, and this one's going to be a really exciting one, a really fun one. The guest I have on today, I'm super pumped to have. I've been following his journey for a while, many years now, and just been, learning from him. Also, kind of like we talked about before we started recording, just like the shows he's been on and the guests he's been able to talk to, just like goals of mine. And so to be able to have him on my show is a cool step. A little fanboy, I guess. I'm going to calm down, take a breath, Chris. But we're going to have a great conversation, guys. You're going to learn a lot about how to be better fathers, better husbands. And so that's why I'm super excited to have Larry Hagner on the show today, CEO, founder of Dad Edge. So Larry, welcome to the Upgraded Man Podcast.
Chris, man, thank you so much for having me, dude. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. So it's fun because like you see people like on social media from afar, right? And you follow their stuff and you're learning from them and you're seeing their life. You have conversations here and there, and then to be able to take to the next level and having on the show. It's just cool. Next time we're gonna have just do it in person. I guess that's the next step.
Yeah,
so,
I love it, man.
As long as it goes on, you're like, Chris is a tool. I'm not gonna talk to him again ever.
Oh, I doubt that. I doubt that, man.
So, man, but yeah, Dad Edge. You started that, over a decade ago, right? No, yeah, over a decade ago.
Yeah.
Man,
It's been about 14 years now. Yeah.
That's crazy. So, helping guys be better fathers, right? Better husbands. Why did you start Dad Edge to help guys do that?
Oh man, so I was on John Bernthal's podcast, and I went. I don't know if you saw that or not, but like he clipped out this one part where he asked me that question, and I just completely riffed. Like I just made it up as I went, and it was funny because like somebody like Bernthal, you're like, dude, like that guy's cool, and like he emailed me personally to invite me, and then he emailed me. He's like, dude, I listen to every show. Like, I love your show. And I was like, what? Like, he's like, I'm a huge fan. I was like, you're a huge fan. Like, what?
That's crazy.
And so like, I thought he kind of knew my story. And then like, he asked me that question, and it's clipped out. And I think it's got like 3.7 million views or something like that. I was like, it was crazy, man. I was like, I woke up on a Sunday, like I opened up the blinds, the sunlight hit me just right. And suddenly it was like divine intervention. I was blessed with all the information to be a good husband, man, and father. And I just had to share it with the world. And you just see this look on his face.
His face was like,
yeah.
I was hilarious, dude.
I was like, dude, I'm totally kidding. He's like, bro, what?
Yeah, he was like, I thought this was a different guy. Or what'd you do to me? I thought it was hilarious.
No, man, I'm client zero. Like when people ask me like, why did you start this? I was like, it was to help myself, and it still is to this day. Yeah. I'll start from the beginning if that's okay.
Sure.
Story is a bit long, but I'll kind of go quick with it. But like my childhood, I think it really started there. So like my mom, biological father, they were married in 71. They had me in 79. I'm 75. And like 9 months after I was born, my mom and dad got divorced, and they were married like super young, like 21 years old. So it was like a really fast, furious relationship. And you're like kids at that point. And they went through a really bad divorce. And my dad, like, I think he tried to visit or whatever. My mom like really pushed back on it. And my dad I have no recollection of my dad whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And then when I was about in kindergarten, it's kind of like when the light bulbs go on, the audio, video equipment, and your memories and all that. And I remember like dads coming to pick up my friends from school, so like some dads wore suits and some dads wore jeans, but I knew what a dad was. And I was like, I don't have a dad. It didn't bother me at all. Like, I was just like, well, I grew up on Looney Tunes. So I literally thought I was delivered to the porch from like the stork, or like we just magically appear somehow. And I didn't have a dad. I was fine with it though. Like I figured, oh, my mom will find one at some point. And I'll never forget, my mom told me one day, and I'll never forget her like pulling me aside. She's like, hey, I want to let you know I'm having a friend over for dinner tonight. He's a really special friend. We work together and I've known him for a couple months, and I really want you to meet him. He's coming for dinner. And like, that was her way of telling me I've been awkwardly dating somebody I work with, and it's now awkwardly time for you to meet him, right? Yeah. But like, I didn't say this out loud, but I was like, that's the dad. This guy's got to be the dad, right? So this dude like walks in my house, And I will never forget it, clear as day. Like, it was cold outside. He was wearing a 3-piece suit. He had like a double Windsor tie. He was wearing a trench coat. He had a briefcase, handlebar mustache, and he was a white collar data software engineer. And like, I seen all these dudes like pick up my friends, and I was like, yep, that's a dad. That's a dad, right? So this guy shakes my hand, and I literally just look up at him, and the first, like, I didn't even say my name, and I was like, "Are you gonna be my dad?" Like,
Oh,
right? And dude, my mom, I think I like literally heard my mom gasp,
oh,
and but I think she kind of like took that. If you've ever seen the movie Jerry Maguire, where like little
yeah,
Ray, hugs Tom Cruise, and like I think my mom kind of like took that this serendipitous sign, like, well, I guess I got to marry this guy, like I got to get this kid a dad, and they got married like 6 months later. And the first year was awesome, man. Like it was euphoric. I had a dad. He adopted me. My last name still to this day is his, and I immediately called him dad. And but after about a year, things got really, really rough. And like they were drinking a lot, there was fighting a lot, there was a lot of arguing, there's a lot of physical abuse. Like cops were called to my house, and he would beat me up pretty good. Like he threw me into a chokehold a few times. He threw me on the ground. He would beat the crap out of my mom. My mom beat the crap out of him. Like, it was like, holy crap, like this is pretty bad. But then again, like I was also raised with a generation that the belt was pretty common. Like you getting beatings was kind of common. So it wasn't like, it was weird. I didn't think it was so outside the box, but it really was. But like by the time I was 10, their relationship completely dissolved, and they got divorced, and he moved out. And then, like, I also come from a generation where not many people I knew were from divorced families. So like, you're kind of like
right,
that kid, like, oh, your dad went out and got the milk and never came back, right?
right.
But I did start asking my mom a lot of questions, because I knew about the birds and the bees in that point. And I'm like, wait a second, this dude is coming in my life till I was 5. Like, who's my dad? And so I asked my mom, I was like, wait, do I have another dad out there? And then she told me, she's like, yeah, I was actually married before Joe. That was his name. And I was like, wait, what? She's like, yeah. And she showed me the wedding album. She knew his name. I just shared his name with me. And then serendipitously, 2 years later, I'm up at a rec center, like a YMCA, playing basketball with one of my friends. And one of the clerks, I knew my dad's name was Larry Boyd. That's all I knew, and what he looked like. And the clerk hands over the basketball to me. He looks over my shoulder, and he goes, here comes Mrs. Boyd with the hockey payment. Because there's a hockey rink up there too. And I was like, Boyd. I was like, Boyd? He's like, yeah, her husband plays hockey up here. She's paying for ice time. And I go, what's her husband's name? And he said, Larry. And I was like, oh my God, that's my dad's name. So like I went up to my friend, and I was like, dude, this lady coming in, I think she's married to my dad. I was 12, right? And so like we wait there. She hands over the check, and on her way out, like I tap her on the shoulder, and I'm like, and she looks at me, and I'm like, hey, I was like, what's your name? And she looks at me like super puzzled, and she's like, my name's Lisa. Why? And I go, are you married to a guy named Larry? And she said, yeah. Why? And I was like, and just like so boldly, man, I just go, I think you're married to my dad. And dude, she knew exactly who I was.
What?
Yeah, man. I guess my dad was obviously pretty open with everything. And she looked at me, she goes, oh my gosh. She goes, sweetheart, are you Larry? And I was like, I am. She goes, yes, sweetheart. She was so kind. Like, just so
Wow.
kind. She was just like, yeah, I am married to your dad. And she goes, would you like to talk to him? And I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to talk to him. And she's like, follow me. Goes around to the payphone. It's 1987. There was no cell phones. And she calls him at home, and she's like, hey, I'm at the rec center, paid the hockey payment. I just ran into your 12-year-old son. He'd like to talk to you. And she just hands the phone over, and very lovingly, respectfully, she wasn't being a pain about it. And then like, I don't remember what my dad and I said. I just remember the sound of his voice. And that turned into us meeting. He only lived 3 miles from us. I had no idea. And saw each other every week. And then that happened for about like 5 months. And then like 5 months into it, things just kind of got weird, like I immediately was calling him dad right out of the gate. I was like over the moon for this dude.
Yeah.
And it just kind of got weird and distant, and sort of like, it was almost like he was fading away a little bit. And I remember one day I called him. And so to answer your question, where did dad edge get started? I don't remember what was said. I really don't. I just remember that was the end of our relationship. And I think my dad was like, hey, it's me. It's not you. This is hard. And that was it. We split. And I remember hanging up that phone, and I was like, when I'm a dad, I'm going to be a good dad. And so my mom continued to date. She got married 3 times. Like I was in a really dark place as a kid with everything. Like my house was chaos. And I moved out when I was 18, went away to college, got my degree. I got into medical device sales, married my college sweetheart. And then I'll fast forward till I was 30. So I'm 30 years old, been in the industry for a few years. We're pregnant with our first kid, married for 3 years. I go in for I met our sales team. One of the women who worked for me, we were also friends, and she was on my sales team. So like her and her husband and me and my wife would hang out all the time. So she knew this story. And we were in a Starbucks in St. Louis, and I don't know what it was, but I saw this dude walk in and he caught my eye, and I was like, holy shit. I was like, my dad just walked in here. I didn't say anything out loud, but that was my dad. I hadn't seen him in 18 years. And the woman that was on my sales team that I was friends with, like, looked at me and she's like, are you all right? You look like you're seeing a ghost. I was like, huh. I was like, I think I have. And she's like, why? I was like, it's like, yeah, my dad just walked in here. And she's like, I'm sorry. And her first question was, which one?
Right.
Right. And I was like, my real dad. She's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. She's like, the one you haven't seen since you were 12? I was like, yeah. She's like, your real dad. I'm like, yeah. She's like, where is he? I was like, he's right over there. Like, he's like 25 feet away. He didn't see me. And she's like, oh my God, like, what are you going to do? What are you going to say? And I was like, I'm not going to say anything to him. She's like, well, wait, so you're not going to say anything to him? And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to say anything to him. I was like, because he doesn't deserve my time. I was like really, really cold about it, that kind of thing. And she just didn't say another word was said. She just got up and walked right over to his table and sat down. I was like, what is she doing?
What is happening?
I know. I was like, do I leave? Do I get up and go to the bathroom? Like fight or flight was going. I hit him like I was angry. And all of a sudden, like our eyes met. He comes over. He's like, hey, and I make my dad sound like a bum. He's a very successful entrepreneur. He's still married to the same woman he was back then. They've been married for 45 years. And he shakes my hand, and I didn't even get up. And I always get up to shake a man's hand.
Right. Yep.
It's like, can I sit down? And I was like, sure. And he's like, how are you? He's like, are you married? Like, do you have kids? I'm like, yes, I'm married. I was like, we're pregnant with our first kid. He's like, what are you doing? I told him, and he's like, and then small talk. And he's like, we should really get together sometime. And I was like, yeah. I was like, well, I took out a business card because it's 2005. There was no smartphones yet. And I literally kind of flicked it across the table. I said, I'll tell you what, you want to get together, you can call me. I'm not calling you.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. And 3 days go by. I didn't hear from him. I was like, I knew it. He's not going to call. And then I get this long email from him. And that email turned into a breakfast that has now turned into a 21-year relationship. And I still see him all the time. I have 2 younger half brothers. He's still married to the same woman. Pretty functional dude, good man, but just made really bad decisions. And he owns that. But Dad Edge really got started 6 years when I was a dad. And this is where I'll end the story. So my youngest at the time, he's now 18, but he's my second born now out of 4 boys. I always told myself when I got married, I was like, I'm going to make myself 3 promises. I'm going to be a good husband. I'm going to be a good dad. And I'm never going to hit my kids because I was hit a lot. I broke all 3 of those promises, Chris. I was not a good husband. I didn't do anything bad. Like I wasn't like abusive or anything, but I was just not engaged.
Yeah.
And being a good dad, I was like half in, half out. It was like paralysis by analysis. I just didn't know what to do. So I did nothing. Yeah. And then one night we had a really bad night. My 4-year-old, who's now 18, stepped out of line, and I turned him around. I spanked him. And unfortunately, I spanked him so hard, he hit the ground. And I was like, oh my God, what did I just do? And when I went to go pick him up, he literally shuddered and closed his eyes and like, please don't hurt me. And I was like, oh my God. And it was that was the night, man. I was like, no more, no more, no more. And I was just like, you're an athletic trainer by trade. Like that's what my degree is virtually the same. And I started thinking about these elements in our life. Like, why do I know everything about the body? Like, why do I know fitness? Why do I know nutrition? I was trained in it for 4 years. Why am I good at sales? It's because I was trained in it. At the time I was doing a ton of martial arts. I was like, why am I okay at that? I was like, I have a mentor, I have a community, I have a curriculum. I was like, what have I done for fatherhood? What have I done for all this? Nothing. So I was just like, well, I guess I'll just go learn it. And the whole podcast and everything, like it was never meant to be what it is today. It was literally like, I was just a curious dude. And I just wanted to talk to people who are way smarter than me so I could learn. And then that was 11 years ago that I started the podcast. And
yeah,
that's how it started, man. It's not pretty.
Well, no, and it's real. And that's the thing. Like everyone has stuff, right? It all looks different. And that's kind of the whole purpose behind Upgraded Man, right? We're all on the journey. It's not a destination per se. It's just getting better each day. And that's kind of what you're helping men do, be better fathers, be better husbands. And do you see still those, because it's been a while, you still see those inklings of the things from your past that you have to kind of put in check every now and then, or have you overcome some of those less ideal reactions?
So both.
Yeah.
I would say I'm probably now in the best place I've ever been, but not days are not sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns by any means, right?
Right.
I still have to get out of my own way. The only difference is luckily I've been able to learn the skills. Now I teach the skills to other men and when you're a teacher, I think you reinforce these lessons from a deeper level.
Yeah.
And, I'm better about it yet. By no means am I perfect. I still have face plants. Luckily to say, I've never put my hands on my kids ever since that day. Have had some bad moments for sure. But the one thing that I've learned is that I'm also a human being and I'm gonna make mistakes. I'm gonna continue to make mistakes. And I had this this one podcast guest. He was like a kind of like a no-name guy. You know, he wasn't like some Hollywood A-list person, but like he emailed me, and this was like, I don't know, 5 years ago. And it was his name that really stuck out on the email. His name was Figs O'Sullivan. Like, I don't know if you can get more Irish than that, but he's a licensed family therapist and one of the most brilliant guys I've ever talked to and had on the podcast. But he said that every relationship, even with ourselves, will go through harmony, disharmony, and repair. He's like, the quality of our relationships isn't necessarily in the harmony and it's not in the disharmony. The quality and the credibility of the relationship is actually always in the repair. And I was like, I don't know what it was about that statement, but I was like, so if I can learn to repair really, really well, like that actually adds more quality to my relationship with my kids, my wife, and even myself. And he's like, absolutely. So I've really dove into like repair over the years and things like that. And so the good news is when I have those bad moments, which sometimes are really often, sometimes they're not so often, but I do know how to repair, which has made things a lot better.
Yeah. What does that look like to repair those? And because we all, are imperfect, right? We all have moments. What are those disharmony moments that actually need quote unquote repair versus disharmony moments that just were those one-off bad day type things?
So great question. I don't know how you were raised, but I was raised with, my mom was never sorry and never owned anything. In fact, everything was always everybody else's fault. And I think when you're a dad, especially, like that was a minefield for me for, I think, a few years. And then I got over it pretty quick because I thought if I went and apologized to my kids for anything, like that was going to give me less credibility and less respect. And what I have found is the total opposite. Like the complete, and what I've learned from that is there's two things that happen when you own things.
Yeah.
So like, let's just say, like here's an example. My 10-year-old has probably gotten 10, my 12-year-old have probably gotten the best version of their dad, like not nearly perfect, but better than the 18 and the 20-year-old. Like an 18, 20-year-old were like, God bless, you weren't like this when you were, I was like, yes, because I was also a jerk.
Yeah.
But I don't think my 10-year-old or my 12-year-old has ever seen me completely freaking blow a gasket. And I did probably 2 weeks ago. So we have a hot tub in our backyard. And my 12-year-old and 10-year-old had friends over and they were playing around the playground that's like 20 feet from our house. It's filled with mulch, like filled with mulch.
No.
That's like the padding.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't know this, but they were getting in and out of the hot tub with all this and then playing on the playground and then getting in the hot tub. They probably did it like 20 times. It literally looked like someone had taken like 4 giant snow shovels full of mulch and they put it in our hot tub. And a hot tub can't take that.
Right.
And I we were going to get in the hot tub the next day and I undo this and I was like, what in name happened here? So I bring my 12-year-old over. I call my 10-year-old in from outside. I was like, what did you guys do this hot tub? And they were like, oh, you were playing on the playground. I was like, and dude, I went freaking berserk. I was like, do you guys understand what and I never say the F word in front of my kids.
Yeah.
Do you understand what you just fucking did? I was like, you could have, this hot tub, it's probably broken. Like, I mean, the filters weren't working. The lights were flat.
Yeah.
And I just freaking lost it, man. And I was saying stuff like, I was like, if this needs repair, it's coming out of your money, ain't coming out of my money. I was like, there's going to be hell to pay. Like I was yelling, like I literally, my 10-year-old started crying. Like he's never seen me like that.
Right. Yeah.
And even my wife, she will never, out of respect, she will never correct me in front of the kids. We always have this agreement that we would never correct each other in front of the kids. We have that in a private conversation and we never disagree. And my wife was even like, Larry, come down.
Mm.
And my wife never says that. So when she said that, I was
Right.
like, oh, wow, I really crossed the line. So
Yeah.
repair really looks like this. So I went to them like the next day. I was pretty pissed. And it took me like 4.5 hours to clean this thing out. And I went to them the next day. I'm like, listen, I sat both of them down, and I could tell, like, when I sat them down, like, they looked still terrified.
Mhm.
And I was like, listen, you both know what you did was wrong, correct? And they're like, yeah. I was like, and I also shouldn't have spoken to you that way.
Mm.
That was so wrong. I was like, I used language with you that was completely unnecessary. I used words and tonality that probably shouldn't have been that extreme. I mean, dude, Chris, when I'm telling you I was yelling, like, I think the neighbors heard me. And
Right.
worst blow up I've had probably in over a decade.
Yep.
And I said, I need to own that. And you
Yeah.
guys need to know that when wrongdoing is done, when you guys have kids or when you're in a relationship, what your dad did was wrong, totally wrong. I was like, what you did was also wrong, but the way I responded was also wrong. So I am very sorry about that. And it's crazy like how resilient and forgiving kids are.
Yeah.
That's number one, is like when you kind of like you own that thing, right? And you're humble about it. But here's what I've noticed about my older kids. I've been doing that with them forever. And one thing I've noticed, I think a result, and it was never a result that I was like after, but it's something I've noticed, that when they do things wrong, and I'll be like, hey, what happened here? And I get this. Yeah, zero excuses. This was on me. I shouldn't have done that. And here's what I'm going to do to fix it. And I'm like, I never used to talk like that. It's like, oh, this happened, and the
Yep.
teacher didn't give the assignment right, or I didn't have, it was always somebody else's fault. But I've also noticed that when you repair like that with extreme ownership and humility, they learn that, which has been
Yep.
so amazing to see.
Yeah, I think those are huge things, especially kids, because they're so moldable and they take so much in at a younger age. Like, we have so much responsibility as they're growing and developing. Like, that's something I think about a lot, is like, what did I do? Like, what could I have done better? Because like I want them to be the best, people ever. Like, better than me, accomplish more than me, whatever. So it's like, am I doing the right thing? Am I spending enough time with them? Am I, getting them the right experiences so they can learn worldviews, or all these things. It's like, and in those moments of, shortcomings, like, do I own it well enough? And I've had moments like that with my young ones too. And they're 5 and 3 right now, or
Yeah.
almost 5. Oh, it's okay, daddy. Like, that thing, when they reply with that, man, it's like it just hits you. Like you said, they're so resilient. And like, yeah, I think repair, that's such a good, thought, because we're all gonna have those bad moments, those less than ideal moments with our actions, words, whatever it might be, accidents even. But to be able to repair those, with our kids, with our spouses, is so huge. And what was that? Because you had a longer gap, with your father. What was that repair like? I'm sure that took a lot more, possibly, because now you have a great relationship, you said, with him. But how did that repair look like over multiple years?
Man, your question on that's so timely, because I don't think I've ever gotten like a whole lot of clarity on that until just recently. Do you know who Father Stephen Gadberry is?
I don't know if I do for sure.
So he's the only Catholic priest that ever competed in American Ninja Warrior.
Okay.
And not once, but twice. He was also on the Sean Ryan show, if you're familiar with that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So Gadberry has phenomenal background, really cool. He's like not your typical priest. He hunts, he fishes, he has a
Wow.
motorcycle. He's like a man's man. He's 40 years old, and he's a dude that you could just like totally just chew the fat with. He's just a great
cool.
guy. And so I asked him about this because, to answer your question, it was about 6 months into me and my dad's relationship. Like, it was kind of new. And then I asked him out to dinner one night. And so we went out to dinner, and we're just I knew I wanted to talk to him about this because I wanted an explanation. We had not talked about it yet. And we were like kind of like just shooting the shit for like 30 minutes.
Yep.
And my dad literally looks at me and he goes, so why are we here? What questions do you have for me?
Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, he knows that stuff, right? I mean, you kind of tell when somebody's got something on their mind. And I was like, all right, man. I was like, I need to talk. He's like, I know. He's like, I knew this conversation was coming. What do you got? Throw anything you want at me. And I go, I want to have this conversation once, and then we never have to have it again. Okay. I was like, but here's the questions. What the hell happened when I was a newborn? You left. And then what the hell happened when I was 12? You got to give me an explanation, man. I was like, I got my own kids now, and I can't even fathom leaving them. And this is really messing with me, dude. And it messed with me my whole childhood. And my dad, my dad could have said anything. My dad was like, yeah, worst 2 mistakes I've ever made in my life were those 2. He's like, if I could explain it, he goes, your mom was really pushing for me to get out of your life. And then when your stepdad came in, I had to sign over parental rights because he legally adopted you. You know that. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, your mom really pushed for that, but here's why I did it. He goes, I did it because I thought I was giving you a shot at a better life and not a broken home. He's like, and I also knew that I wasn't mature enough to be your dad, or I didn't have the capacity at the time. And I literally thought I was giving you another life. If I would have known all the chaos that you were going through, I would have stepped in, but I didn't. He's like, and then at 12, what happened was I was, starting my new life. I had a 2-year-old son. We had another one on the way. And it was just it was so weird for me. He was like, and I didn't know what to do. And he goes, there's no resources like there are now. He was like, I was 35 years old. And he's like, I struggled with it, but I thought the best thing to do was to stop the confusion on my part, stop the confusion on your part, and just break ties again. He's like, but that's never sat with me well. But I did it and I can't take it back. He's like, but if I could do things over again, I wouldn't even have left you the first time. And I was just like, damn, I mean, what do you say to that? You can't,
Right.
it's just like, but here's what reason I reference Stephen Gadbury is because we had a deep conversation around forgiveness. And I was like, because I told him, I was like, I'm like 98% forgive him. And then there's like 2%, like he'll still, like I just saw him last week and he'll talk about like how he did scouting with my brothers and coached their hockey teams and took them on camping trips. And sometimes I'm just like, I would have loved that. I really would have, and that's, and Gadbury said this, he's like, a lot of people say forgive and forget, but you never should. Yeah. And I was like, what do you mean by that? He's like, just because you forgive somebody, that doesn't mean you forget what they did. But here's what, and this is the way he really, really described it. And I've never heard it like this. He's like, think of forgiveness like you're planting a small plant. The seeds you need seed, but if you overwater it, the plant's going to die. If you underwater it, the plant's going to die. He's like, but then even if you take good care of it, you still have to prune it. You have to trim it. You still have to give attention to that. You even have to revisit that plant over and over and over again to take good care of it because you can never neglect it. He's like, forgiveness is actually the exact same thing. If you overdo it, you're going to kill it. If you underdo it, you're going to kill it. And if you don't prune it, it's going to get out of whack. He's like, so forgiveness is never a one and done conversation. It's a continual conversation. And I was like, what does that even look like? He's like, it could look like this. He's like, hey dad, like, listen, that there's forgiveness here, but there's still some things that I just need to get off my chest. And this is not an attack, but I might just need this re-explained, this and this. And then you're pruning again. And then, and then you revisit the plant. And I was just like, I've never heard of it like that. Cause we were always taught like forgive and forget, and then you're done.
Right.
It's really not possible.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, cause you're gonna have those scars, right? You're gonna have those memories. You're gonna have whatever it is. You can't just erase it from yourself. Those reminders. Yeah, I like that visual of forgiveness, and you don't forget it, but you have to, continually take care of it, basically, and almost, make room for more forgiveness, I guess, as you go, as you unlock new things and be able to work through. So how as an imperfect person, talking about myself, how can we be better leaders in our homes, better fathers, better husbands? Because this is what, you teach and guide people and have built this community. Where are the things people can start with themselves? Obviously, right, it starts with us, ownership. So where do we need to start with ourselves to start improving who we are in our households?
So I think it's a great question. That's a big question that can go in. It's like an oak tree, right? It's one thing, but it's also several branches. But the trunk is yourself, right? And what a lot of men will do, and this was me included too, is I would try to selflessly serve everybody else and never serve or lead myself. And that leads to people that you're leading really hungry and thirsty because you're not doing it well. So I think every man needs an anchor, right? And for me, it's fitness and faith.
Yep.
And so if I am not doing those two things literally on a daily basis, I'm in my Bible every single day. I'm moving my body every single day. And if I don't do that, I don't feel good in my spirit. I don't feel good in my body. Therefore, I'm not going to feel good in my mind. And the output of that is my energy and my leadership.
Yeah.
So, like right before we hit record today, my 20-year-old called me and asked for advice on what he could get from Chipotle because he's trying to be fit. And he just got a inline body scan. He's a bit more overweight than he wants to be. But the one thing I do take pride in is like, I have to emulate the man that I want my young men to be.
Yeah.
Right. So like, and if I'm not doing that, then they're not going, no matter what I say, because it doesn't matter whatever, it's not what it's about what we teach. It's about what they catch. So it's, it's about, it's not what's about being taught. It's about what's being caught. So, I have to lead myself. That's priority number one. That's not selfish. That's selfless, because my output has to be good for them. The second thing, my second, first of all, it's God, and it's then leading myself, and then leading my marriage. What a lot of couples do, and I think it's human nature. Once we get married and then we start having kids, the frying pans of our marriage get put on the back burner, and we put those kids on the front.
Right.
The problem with that is that those burners never change, or we never give attention to that back burner. And we think that we're doing the right thing by prioritizing the kids. And when I say priority, they're like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction, underneath my wife. It's not like I come home and, oh, I know you have a broken leg, but me and mom have a date.
Right.
You know what I mean? Excuse me. It's not that. And plus, there are times where your kids are going to need more of your attention. Right. And there are times your marriage is going to need more attention. But the way my wife view our marriage is, we are the walking, talking 3D motion picture of what a healthy relation could look like, or a really bad one could look like. So we purposely, intentionally, and wholeheartedly love each other with everything that we have. And I fulfill her 3 basic needs as a wife, because what she needs from me is to be seen, heard, and safe. She needs those things from me. And for me, I need to be respected. That's why she won't disagree with me. Even if she disagrees with me in front of the kids, that's out of respect. She'll do that privately. She also knows a man needs appreciation and physical affection. Yeah. But I can't expect her to fulfill my needs unless I'm fulfilling hers, and vice versa. Right. So we communicate well, right? We conflict resolute really well. There was even this thing. My wife and I hardly ever argued. That wasn't always so, but it's because I didn't know the skills. But it's about 6 years ago. My 20-year-old, I think he was 14 at the time, my wife and I were in a pretty heated discussion in our like on our deck outside. Our kids were playing, and my 14-year-old, who's now 20, came up the stairs, and we weren't yelling or anything like that, but he could tell that there was tension, and he stopped in his tracks. He's like, "Are you guys okay?" And I was like, "No, not really right now." And he goes, "Are you fighting?" And I was like, we're disagreeing right now. I was like, "We're not fighting." And he goes, "Are you gonna get divorced?" I was like, what? And I was like, "No, man, like, we don't give these kids any indication. In fact, it's the opposite. We have a goal to gross them out as much as possible." And no kidding around. That's and awesome. I look at my wife and I said, "Hey," I just kind of whispered, I was like, "Can he sit down and watch us go through this? Like, watch us resolve?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I said, "Ethan," I was like, "have a seat." And he's like, "Why?" I was like, "We're disagreeing, but I want you to watch how we get through this." And he's like, "Okay." And he pulled up a seat. I don't even remember what the thing was my wife and I were disagreeing about, but we
probably getting in a hot tub or something. No, just kidding.
Yeah, good one. Yeah. But anyway, after we resolved everything, and it wasn't, me being right or her being right. It was us. It was a win-win situation. That's what we always go for. Yeah. And I looked at him and I was like, "What did you see?" And he goes, "That was pretty cool." I was like, "What was cool about it?" He goes, "Well, you didn't yell at each other." I was like, "We don't yell at each other. That's one of our boundaries and expectations of each other, that even in a disagreement, we talk as calmly as we are right now. What else did you notice?" And he's like, "You guys were holding hands." I was like, "Yeah, we hold hands when we disagree." I was like, "What else?" He goes, "No one talked over the other person. You guys listened to each other." I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "What else?" And he goes, "You came to an agreement at the end." I was like, "That's how you resolve conflict." And so, like, I want our kids to see that kind of stuff, because that's how they learn. And luckily now, 6 years later, he's got a long-term girlfriend who's 2 years. My 18-year-old's been dating the same girl since 8th grade. But I look at these 2 relationships, and they're really actually like mature and healthy. And they haven't told me this, but they've told my wife, like, that the reason that they're better in relationships is because they've watched mom and dad. But they've never told me that. I would love for them to tell me that, but they haven't. But I think you've got to prioritize that marriage and lead within that marriage. And then the third element is obviously leading the kids, right? And I'm a big proponent of, when I lead my kids, I lead them through questions and not lectures, because I want them to articulate the things that might have been wrong what they're going to do about it, how they're going to solve a problem, whatever that problem is, and I resist so badly wanting to jump in and just tell them what to do.
Right.
But by me leading them is leading them through questions so they can articulate and be critical thinkers.
Mm. Yeah, I like that one a lot. And that's something I try to do, even my kids being young, is let them try to like figure things out, or like not necessarily just come right to the rescue. Like if they're trying to reach something and they can safely, like there's a way for them to safely do it. I'm like, well, how do you think you could maybe get to that book or
Yeah.
get to that toy or whatever it is? Do you think there's a way you could do it? And like let them kind of process through and see them. And most of the time they figure it out. It's just cool to kind of see that. And I think, with your wife and you, I think communication just in general, you and your spouse, you and your kids, you and your coworkers, you and your friends, like communication, I feel like is becoming, I don't go too dramatic, but like a lost art almost, because everything's online. It's so easy to just send something without repercussions or actually seeing a person's face when you say it. I think people are forgetting how to actually communicate and have disagreements or be upset without attacking, right?
Yeah.
And so that's something to really, I think a lot of people need to focus on, even if they don't have kids or even if they're not married. Where's communication? Where are the pieces of communication that we need to really focus on in today's world that have been kind of forgotten about? I know, like you just mentioned, for one, being calm, right? Not talking over, raise your voice. Is there other things with communication that with our kids, spouses, just people in general that we can improve upon or think about when we're doing it?
So, absolutely. So in our groups, like we teach a lot of these tactical skills, and like I also lead like a marriage cohort where, I teach 11 tactical skills on how to create, an extraordinary marriage.
Right.
And a lot of it has to do with the way that we operate within communication. So, and I'm also going to quote G.S. Youngblood. I'm a huge fan of his work, huge fan of his work. I've had him on the podcast. We hosted an event called the Men's Forge a couple months ago. He was one of the speakers, but I love that guy. He wrote a great book called The Masculine in Relationship. That book will change your life. It's so good. And he keeps things really simple too. So like his book, The Masculine in Relationship, he has what he calls the 3-part blueprint. One is respond versus react, right? So no matter what is coming your way, right? Because anything can be kind of triggering. Let's just take a conversation with your wife, right? She could be venting about something, like it could be the kids, her girlfriends, like something. We sometimes get triggered by that and we react to it. And sometimes, like I'm working with a client right now, he's very reactive. Like he's so reactive. He takes everything personally. Like one of the biggest lifts I'm trying to teach him is like, you can't take these things personally.
Yeah.
He's like, what if it's like about me? I was like, it's the same rules. I was like, so you have to be responsive. Like you have to, like one of the skills that I teach in that course is creating an environment of psychological safety. And that sounds like an academic term, which it kind of is, but what is that? Psychological safety is if you've ever been in a conversation with somebody and you just gush, and then like after you leave, you're like, oh my God, like I can't believe I said all that. Like, and you text the person like, sorry, I probably said too much. And like that person provided an environment that was free from shame, blame, pain, and guilt. And that's really, you can learn to manufacture that environment where people are going to freely talk about things. And one of the things I talked about on Bernthal's podcast is that's so important when you're raising kids, because kids are going to go through really, really dark times.
Yep.
And if you are not their go-to, like the example that I used in the past year, I've had to become my oldest son's and my second son's 3 a.m. call. And not because they were drinking too much or anything like that. It's just they were in a situation and they had to get out of it.
Yep.
And but your kids are going to have, let's just take drinking or doing drugs. They're going to be at a party, 17, 18 years old. They're going to have that phone in their hand and they're going to be like, well, do I call dad or do I roll the dice and drive home? And I've always told my kids, but you've got to put those reps in to create psychological safety. So the second element after being calm is lead with structure. Right. And leading with structure doesn't necessarily mean you're going to solve the problem. You're going to have a very fruitful conversation with guidelines and boundaries. Right. And then the third element is what I just said, which is provide safety. Right. So let's just take, for instance, a woman who's venting, right, about something. Let's just say it's the kids. As soon as she's venting about something, we immediately want to go in and fix the problem. Like, well, you should do this. You should do that. Like, well, have you thought about doing this? And I always use the word should as like you're shoulding all over somebody, right? And nobody likes that. Like my wife
Right.
has this super tight relationship with her mom. Like they're really, really tight. But even in that feminine relationship, my mother-in-law, bless her heart, she's the greatest mother-in-law on the planet. I love her to death. She's basically like my mom. I've known her for 30 years, but if my wife goes to her and talks to her about something, she gets met with, well, Jessica, you should be doing this and you should be doing that. Why aren't
Right.
you doing this? And she always starts everything with, well, Jessica. And so she is very guarded about some of the topics that she'll talk about with her mom. Instead of fixing things or shitting all over somebody, you want to validate, just simply validate where they're at. And validation just sounds like that sounds really frustrating, like really frustrating. Like in your situation, I don't know anybody who wouldn't be frustrated. So tell me more about that. What's going on? And when you do that in conversation with your wife, and I also teach attraction and polarity, you become the most attractive man in the room. And but this is a minefield for men because we're thinking like, I know exactly what to do. I don't know if you've ever seen the YouTube video of It's Not About the Nail. Have you ever heard of this?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
like it's a perfect example. It's a 1:42 video, but every man should watch that video because it's so true. The guy's literally telling her she's got this nail sticking out of her head and she's complaining how she's got a headache and snagging her sweaters and she can't sleep. And he's like, well, pull the nail out. She's like, it's not about the nail. And she gets really fiery and frustrated. And finally he's just like, okay, I'll listen. What is it? And she keeps going on and on. And he's looking at her like she's nuts. But then he's like, that sounds really hard. And then she melts. And it's obviously exaggerated because it's meant to be funny, but those same rules do apply. So when you validate somebody else's emotions, and then you normalize it by saying something like, anybody be frustrated in that situation. And then when you say, tell me more versus like, why do you feel that bad? Or why are you so angry? It's not that big of a deal because that's what we want to do sometimes. When you say, tell me more, that's an invite and they're going to keep talking. The more that they are talking and the more that you're intently listening, the more attracted to you she is, the more polarity you have, the more you're actually leading, quite frankly, in that space than what you think.
Yeah. Yeah, because those open up more because you're kind of doing the same thing. You're trying to get them to the basically have them answer their own question or solve their own problem by leading with questions versus just doing it the way you think it should be done. Because they could have a different solution or know things that you're not thinking about. And that's hard. And that's something like I've had to try to, and I still have to work a lot on is the asking the more questions on it instead of just saying, well, why don't you do this? Or you could do this. Like, so that's something for sure that my wife's probably like, hey, you need to remember what Larry said. Go listen to that episode. That's what I'm going to hear. So,
well, an easy way to remember this is like, we always want to ask why, always. Right. And this is a psychological thing is that when we ask why, even if we're genuinely curious, and we're not trying to challenge anybody. Even when we say, well, why do you feel that way? Even if it just comes from a place of like, I just want to know a little bit more about the situation in you. The word why triggers accusatory and it triggers defense.
Yep.
So one of the things we always teach is replace the 3-letter word with 3 words. So instead of why, tell me more. Yeah. So when the tell me more, excuse me, is an invite. And it's also psychological safe. That just shows genuine curiosity. You're going to get way more meat on the bone when you want to ask that question. Why? Just be like, tell me more about that, or tell me more. Either one will get you so much more.
Yeah. And I think it just kind of, again, goes back to what lost art, right? Of listening and communicating. And we just want to fix it, want the answer now. We want whatever it is, right this way. And it's just gotten away from that. And I feel like sometimes, at least my perspective on it, and I feel like we get so wrapped up in all the things that need done. The house needs cleaned, this needs to happen in business. This happened on the podcast. We got to go this weekend with the kids. They have this going on. And we just forget to like actually take the time to listen.
Yeah.
And sit down and have those moments. We're kind of caught up in the hecticness and forget to have the harmony with it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so well said, man. Yeah.
So with that too, like, that's another thing with as leading, that I just feel like we're seeing it, I don't know, get attacked, but like the masculine leadership, patriarchal like setup of relationships. How do we continue to lead as men in our relationships when I think a lot of people are weaving that toxic quote unquote masculinity and like what true masculinity is? Because we have to discipline some way, form or fashion, right? There has to be some sort of consequence. There has to be, not necessarily hierarchy, but like the leader and kind of the same level with the wife. Like, how do we navigate all that? The changes we've seen in, the society of what men should be. Like, men should just be really soft, and we're seeing all the issues that are coming from that.
I agree. So I just have you seen this documentary on Netflix? It's like, I think it's called Into the Masculine Verse or something like that.
Oh
Or
no, I have not.
oh my gosh, man. So it's got like it's crazy.
Okay.
It's like really crazy. So I've always heard this term toxic masculinity, but
Right.
I don't I've never really done my homework on it. Like, I know who Andrew
Sure.
Tate is, but I don't listen to him ever. I'll see like a clip or two like every like couple times a year, and I'm like, that guy's a maniac. And but I don't really, I've never really gotten into it. And literally, like, I just watched this thing 2 nights ago. So it's I think it's called Into the Masculine Verse or something like that. It's this
Okay.
guy named Brett something or another. He's from the UK and he makes documentaries. And he wanted to really explore this whole thing of toxic masculinity. And and a lot of these like podcasters, like a lot of them are podcasters or influencers.
Mhm.
I think there was like 3 or 4 on there, and he went and like had like deep discussions with these guys. And I never really understood the term toxic masculinity until I saw that documentary. And it's been around forever. And I'm in this space. I should probably know it better. And I didn't. I watched this thing and I was like, holy crap, man. Like, no wonder people are so mad at men. Like,
Right.
this is ridiculous. It made me angry.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there thinking, I was like, these freaking bozos are like giving men a really bad name, like
Right.
hard stop. And like the way that they talk to women, the way that they disrespect women. Like, I was just like, I want to go through the freaking screen and strangle these guys. I'm like, what
Right.
is wrong with you, man? Like,
Yeah.
this is not right, man.
Yeah.
But then I think you take the other extreme of that. Have you ever seen the movie Crazy Stupid Love?
Oh, yes, but it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. It came out, but Ryan Gosling and Steve Carell,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So, and it's meant to be a comedy. It is a comedy. It's really funny. Anything with Steve Carell is funny.
Yeah.
And but I'm a huge fan of Steve Carell. I'm a huge fan of Ryan Gosling. Maybe not The Notebook. That's a little bit too girly for me, but like, I do like
Sure.
Ryan Gosling in movies. I think he's a great actor. But like, when I get with my clients, I'm like, if you want to see the extremes, look at the guys who are on this documentary, like Andrew Tate and these other guys. Like, that is, quite frankly, that's not what a woman wants, and that's not what a man should be.
Right.
But if you watch that movie, Crazy Stupid Love, Steve Carell is the ultimate nice guy, right?
Yeah.
And Robert Glover wrote a book on that, but it's like, he's not getting his needs met. He just is like literally just existing, doesn't take care of himself, doesn't lead in his marriage. His wife ends up having an affair. Obviously, that's all on her. That's wrong. Shouldn't have done
Right.
that. But like, he's completely lost as a man. And then you have the character that Ryan Gosling plays in it. And granted, they do it for the movie, but like,
Sure.
he's a bit chauvinist and that kind of thing. But if you dial that character back just a little bit and you kind of get to the heart of who Ryan Gosling really is in that movie, like, you really got to peel back the onion layers when you watch that.
Mhm.
But he is the middle ground. He really is. Where, and granted, he picks up women in the movie and that kind of thing. But what does he do and how does he operate? Right. So how he operates is he's not tied to outcomes. So like, if he has a conversation with somebody, he doesn't hold resentment if his expectations are not met. He just allows it to do what it is, whatever it's going to be.
Yeah.
He's playful. Like, he's very, he doesn't take life too seriously. He's very playful. Another character I think that emulates that pretty good is Ryan Reynolds. Like, he's just a playful, lighthearted guy. He's not a toxic masculine man, at least in movies. I don't know him in real life, but
Yeah.
But there's this middle ground, and I think G.S. Youngblood is the one guy that I think really hits this middle ground home if you read his book. So I think the middle ground for this is, you're a kind man, right? But you're not a nice guy.
Yep.
A kind man has expectations and boundaries. A kind man will also communicate expectations and boundaries. He'll also be willing to hold his boundaries. So like, for instance, I'll never be the Andrew Tate in my marriage where I'm like talking to Jessica, like, look, you biatch, like, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to freaking like it, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not going to do that. And I'm also not going to be the guy who's like, yeah, whatever you think. And she'll be like, and if she emasculates me or disrespects me, I'd be like, yeah, oh gosh, yeah, you're right. Like, you cave.
Yep.
I think a good example of this is when Jessica and I were going, and she's never been like this, thank God, but I've dated women who have been terrible. But like, in our relationship, I'll give you a great example. So when we first started dating in college, I'll never forget this time. We were wrestling, like just joking around, and she play slapped me in the face.
Oh,
and I was,
no.
yeah, I was, and I grabbed her by the hands. Just, not violently, just gently.
No,
And
right.
I looked at her and I said, please don't ever hit me in the face. Not even joking around. That's an expectation I have. And the boundary is if you do that, we will no longer be together.
Right.
She was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I was just kidding. I was playing. I was like, I know you were. I know you were. I was like, but I have a past with this and it's a triggering thing for me. So just in the future, please don't do that. And if you do, that will be the end of our relationship. Okay. And she's like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Got it. She's never done it since. But like, even in like in conflict, I'll say, hey, if I'm speaking to you calmly and you raise your voice to me and call me a name, I will end the conversation. And then I'll come back to it, but I'm not going to continue a conversation where I'm being disrespected because I'm not going to do that to you. Yep. And I think those are the expectations and those are the boundaries. And I think a lot of men are scared to do that because they don't want to upset the apple cart, right? And they think that being a nice guy is also being a loving guy, but love has boundaries. And the final thing I'll say is this, and this just came from a recent podcast guest. There's such a thing as unconditional love, but there's no such thing as an unconditional relationship. And you've got to know those boundaries and they need to be clearly communicated and enforced. And I know my boundaries with her 100%.
Yeah. And I think that's huge. And my wife and I kind of had the same conversation about the face slapping thing, which is funny. That's crazy. And that's something, I still like the boys will do it, like playing because they're really little. And I'm still like, I'm like, hey, don't hit in the face.
Yeah.
Like, it's still like it's a weird thing, but I've had that same conversation. But like, again, setting up those boundaries and guardrails, like because what triggers you, or like for another instance, like I think it was before we had kids or maybe Everett was born. I was trying to fix this stupid vacuum. Man, this is still vivid in my mind. I was trying to fix this stupid vacuum, man. And it was like, we had other stuff going on. I think the dog was barking and she was trying to be helpful. She didn't do anything wrong in this situation. She was trying to be helpful. Hey, like, can you do that or try this or this? And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to be better. I'm like, I was like, Hannah, please just don't say anything else. Please. I don't need you to try to tell me what to fix on this vacuum. I'm going to get it. Like, just please, I'm getting upset. Like, I don't want to lose it or like blow a gasket. I was like, just please. The dog's still barking. Baby might've been crying. I can't remember. And so I'm still working on a stupid vacuum, trying to put it back together. And I think something broke. I was doing something and a piece broke. And then she said something like, oh, you should have done this first. And I was like,
oh, no.
Boom. And I took that, and I'm not proud of this. It was just funny looking back because I didn't hurt anybody. But I took that vacuum and I just ripped it in half. I took the basket and the main part and I just ripped it. Pieces broke everywhere and I just kind of tossed it to the side. And I like instantly I was like, yelled, like, I told you. And then kind of like back down. I was like, I asked you not to say anything else. Please just let me kind of cool off. But it's like in that moment of like those guardrails are there and like we've gotten so much better. That was early on. Like I've gotten a lot better to like control that some. And we've had those conversations and it's those I think. And when you've had those hard conversations and you've worked through those hard moments, instead of just like sweeping them under the rug or trying to bury the emotions, like actually having the conversation, those hard conversations of like, hey, like, I don't know if we're going to last if we keep this up, like, or, if we keep acting this way, I don't think it's going to work out, or this makes you really upset, or this is like really great. Like just those conversations in general, I think we stop shying away from those. I think we'll just have such a more fuller relationship in life because we can approach those hard things and whatever happens, but at least you put them out there, right? And you don't just try to let them boil underneath the surface.
Yeah, man. I am not a handy guy, like at all. Like I make the phone call, or I'll try to figure it out on YouTube. But your vacuum was a toilet a week ago.
Oh, geez.
And like literally and my wife is more handy than me. And so like, but she also knows that like if I'm really struggling with something, which I was, like she won't say anything. And I was like ferociously trying to fix this toilet, trying to get this one piece off, and I just could not get it off. It was like I was contorting my body between like the wall and this thing, and I was like, what does like a little person need to get under the like? And I was like sweating and like and I came out of the bath. My wife heard everything, and I come out of the bathroom and she didn't say a word. And she knew that if she did, I'd be like, I probably would have, I don't know. I'm not an Incredible Hulk. Like, I don't think I rip a vacuum in half. I was ready to take that toilet out of the freaking floor and throw it outside.
Yeah. And I love this because like no one's perfect. Everyone
Right.
listening to this is not perfect. Like, it's a journey. Like, we're working to improve every day our relationships and ourselves. And, that's why I love this conversation. And, we could probably talk for another couple hours, but I definitely want to be, respectful of your time and stuff. And so, like, what you shared so far, I think people can start implementing to improve, their relationships with their kids, with their spouses, just in general. And so I appreciate you sharing all of that. And, hey, who knows? Maybe we have part 2 in person next time or something like that, to get more of the conversation. But I think this is just a great start to it, for people to build better relationships. And so what we do here, kind of rounding up our episodes now, is we have this little guy right here, which I call the Upgraded Man Journal. And each guest leaves something in this journal for the next guest
Oh, what a
to
great idea.
think about. Yeah. And so I've got something in here for you, which it's crazy what we talked about. I thought you were going to say it. And I was like, oh man, how crazy am I going to segue from him actually saying what was in this journal? So I'm excited to hear your response to this. But before I dive into that and get your response to it and let you leave something for the next guest, where obviously, is the best place people can connect with you to learn more about Dad Edge, to get help, guidance, community, and just, continue to see your stuff on social media?
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. I'm not too hard to find if you just search up Dad Edge or the Dad Edge. I'm the Dad Edge on Instagram, the Dad Edge on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is really shocking. Like, I've never figured out YouTube, but I haven't put a lot of time into it. But our YouTube subscribers are only, for some crazy reason, only 15,000. But everything else, like our downloads, we get hundreds of thousands every month.
Awesome.
And
Yeah.
but it's fine, whatever. People can absorb content however they want. But I always say, start with the podcast. It's on all channels. And I'm not sure what happened to my camera.
No.
That's weird. Hang on one second.
No worries.
Well, I can just finish up. I'm not sure what happened to my camera, but the Dad Edge on everything. We're on everywhere you find podcasts. I will say this, if just a couple of free resources for you, to get you started. If you go to thedadedge.com/25 questions, if you're having a hard time, like, having conversations with your wife, download that PDF. I'm not selling anything. It's not, it's 25 intimate conversation starters that if it's been a while since you've asked your wife or taken her out on a date or just had some fun with some questions, that's a great PDF. Also, if you want to have better conversations with your kids, you can go to thedadedge.com/kid questions, all one word. That's 25 questions. It's 75 total questions, and it's 25 questions in the age category of 5 to 8, then 9 to 12, and then teenagers. So if you want to have a better connection with your kids, I've got great questions that just have fun with that. As far as like, I do have a promo going on right now. I just released about a year ago, actually, but I'm still doing it because people are still doing it. If they go to thedadedge.com/legendary book, that's my, again, thedadedge.com/legendary book. That's the pursuit of legendary fatherhood. Everything that we've talked about and way, way more is in that. Like, literally everything that I've learned in the past 15 years, I put in that book.
Yep.
And it's, if you go to that and you buy it straight from me, I'm going to sign it. And then I'm also going to send it to you. But I'm going to give you 2 free courses along with that. So I created a couple courses years ago. One is called Creating More Chaos. I'm sorry, Creating More Patience in the Heat of Chaos. And that teaches 6 tactical skills to be more patient, calm, responsive father. And then also Creating Extraordinary Marriage. That's the second course. 11 tactical skills to create a better connection with your wife, have deeper conversations, more intimacy, more physical intimacy, the whole 9 yards, create attraction, all those things. So that'll be there for people if they want that.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. Everyone, make sure you get connected with Larry on there and learn from him and just continue to upgrade in these areas through what he offers. And so, thanks for sharing that. Thanks for creating that space for people, for sure. So to dive into the Upgrade Man Journal, last guest, Philip Lanier, shared this, and I thought it was perfect for our conversation. He shared this quote: "It is better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war."
How about that? I'll just go over here. I love that quote. I've heard that quote so many times, and it's so true. And I think just to really hit that home, a man is a warrior outside of his castle, right? We go to battle every single day. Like, we're providers, we're hunters, we're gatherers. And what a lot of guys do is and me included too, it's like, well, I'm providing, like, isn't that enough? But we also take that same personality into our families. And you can't be the warrior inside the castle, but you can't be the soft guy either. I'm not saying that, but you've got to be that, like what G.S. Youngblood talks about, like being that calm, responsive man who leads with structure and provides safety. So, our kids don't necessarily need us to be a warrior inside the castle. They need us to be their 3 a.m. call. And, in order to do that, you've got to create structure. Of course, you got to create discipline. I'm not saying that, but what you do need to do is create safety. That's, your kids and your wife actually have the exact same 3 basic needs, which is seen, heard, and safe, which kind of gives us guys the easy button. We can provide both those things just in different ways.
Yep. Yeah, I love that. And I love that quote too. So when we were talking about it, I was like, man, is he going to bring this quote up? Because it's tracking exactly with what he was saying. So it's just how perfect that was. So yeah. So on the flip side of that, what quote, comment, question would you like to leave for the next guest?
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes, I think it was by Napoleon Hill. It was the first quote I used in Pursuit of Legendary Fatherhood. And whenever I've heard this quote for the very first time, I got the chills, still do to this day. The definition of hell is being on your deathbed and meeting the man that you could have become. And just to give some context to that is I'm a big fan of not leaving anything on the table when it comes to all of these things that we've talked about. And like my 18-year-old is leaving for college in 50 days. And while I'm sad to see him go, my wife and I had a conversation about it. She's like, do you regret anything? And I had to really think on that. I didn't give it I was just like, I actually don't. I actually have no regrets. I was like, I really connected with him. I spent time with him. We adventured together. We did things together. Like we talked very deeply. Like I actually don't have any regrets. And like, so if I were to die tomorrow, I wouldn't have any regrets. And what I would encourage men to think about, and maybe your next guest, is how does that manifest in somebody else's life when you think about that quote?
Yeah. I love that. That's a good one. And yeah, I'm all about leaving it all out there, giving it your best. And so yeah, this has been a great conversation. And Larry, again, I appreciate you being on the show today. Thanks so much for sharing your expertise and your stories and helping somebody today.
And thank you for having me. This was such an honor. And you're a great interviewer. And if I could do one more thing,
sure.
I'd love to just encourage your audience. Like, hey, if you've gotten anything from Chris's show, anything at all, like wherever you're listening to this podcast, as soon as we're done talking, go and rate and review his show. Give him a 5-star and be specific about maybe just one thing. It takes 30 seconds. One thing that you've gotten from Chris. He's a great interviewer. He runs a great show. Us podcasters, these things are for free and they're a ton of work. And the best way to repay Chris is just to go leave him a 5-star review. So please go do that.
I appreciate that. And I don't have to say anything else. He said it for me. No, just kidding. So, thank you all for tuning in and listening. If you haven't followed, please follow. Again, same thing Larry said. We do this to try to help people and share this episode with someone who's trying to be a better father, better husband, and just be better in general. And we can help more people together that way. But until next time, go out there, continue to upgrade your life, and we'll talk to you again soon.